Alright, getting ready to go back out in the woods. I wanted to document some of this while I have it apart. I'm actually waiting for a train. Don't want to waste time. So my short little Sujis are going to come off these saws. This one has 325 and that one has 3/8. So I went down the Tractor Supply and bought the Husky Rancher bar that has 6 rivets in the tip. VersaCut is for a large amount. This is the rig that comes off my 562 or 565 if I want. Right now I'm running a 24-inch bar on that one. It's going to stay. But while I have the saws apart, notice the difference in where the sprockets are. Right? External on the 565, 572, 390s, 372s. Makes it a lot easier. Of course, the heat is further towards the case. That's why they do this. And on the light saws, the spinning mass of the chain is closer to the center line of the saw. That's another reason they do that. And this is my 560, which is basically a 562 wrapped around a 555 set of cases, including the crank. The crank is unique to a 560 and to the 2260 John's Thread because it has a shorter stub for the PTO that the small mount cases have. But it has stuffers. I did that in a prior video. But basically what I'm going to do to sum this up is we're going to run this Country Line M78 package. Comes with a bar and a chain. Let me see what it says about itself. 50 bucks. Right? 325, 50 gauge. It's a bar and chain combination. And let's just see if it works. If it doesn't work, then I put the Oregon Speed Cut on there. I've got Speed Cut chain, that's what it is, and the bar, which is a laminate, which is actually quite a bit lighter, by the way. You can feel it. It's a very, very light bar. They say it has an aluminum core. Basically has steel on the outside, aluminum on the inside. You can almost see it. And this is a laminate bar too. It's just laminate with steel. You can see where they spot welded the little dots. So this is the bottom feeder of the guide bars, right? Aftermarket, probably Chinese, relabeled Country Line. And this is the bottom feeder for chain. But let's just go see if they work. Right? And then we'll decide if they really are a bottom feeder or they actually a good deal. And the things that I'm going to judge are things like how fast do I have to adjust it because of stretch, how fast do they wear, and whether they cut enough, they cut fast enough that it doesn't annoy me. One thing I don't see on this aftermarket stuff, how do you know where you start and end with filing? Whereas with the Husqvarna C83, you either have a painted link or you actually have a gold one. Let me see if I got one in this. Yeah, see it right down there? So that's actually handy, so you can start and stop there when you do your filing. And yeah, I like the external sprocket versus the internal for changing bar and chains. I like the fact that the nuts are captured on these. Problem I have is I got to blend a bucking spike for this saw at some point. And when these first came out, there really wasn't an option. They got holes right there, but I didn't really see an option. Now that's a 262. We're covering a lot of ground. So that's a 560. Small mount. It's got a 325 sprocket. This is a 262, which in its day was a hot rod saw. It's got 3/8 chain. I'm putting 20-inch bars on both of them. External sprocket, chain adjuster right here, captured nuts, so it makes this operation easier with a 24-inch X tough. And notice it's got the 6 rivets just like that one does. So I think that's a laminate bar though. See, that's the spot welds are on that one. This is a solid bar. Anyway, we'll put them all together. So I got those 2 saws put away. Let's look at these a little closer. That M78, I got it from Tractor Supply. Again, aftermarket chain. A laminate steel bar, a little heavy as compared to the Oregon Speed Cut that has 2 steel and 1 aluminum, so it's a little bit lighter. But let's look at the chains a little bit too. Notice the Speed Cut chain from Oregon has got those little slots, and that draws oil up into the pins, lubricate them better, possibly make them last a little longer. Now the Speed Cut is kind of with a round, it's like a semi-chisel. I can tell you from experience they cut like freaking crazy, so they don't need to be a full chisel to cut well with these small 325 chains. This aftermarket chain is a similar kind of a, very similar actually. But this one doesn't have those little grooves here to pull the oil in, and there's no way of telling where the start and end is if you want to sharpen them. They don't have a different colored link anywhere. It does Speed Cut, or is that a Husky thing? See, I think that's Husqvarna only. It's one of the reasons why I like their C85s, little things like that. So price wise, these are not as far apart as you might think, but they're sometimes hard to find. You might have to get it off of eBay. Nobody carries Oregon much anymore, which is a shame. This is every Tractor Supply. So that's why I want to kind of compare them just to see how they last, one versus the other, and how they cut one versus the other. Both have 4 rivet tips, both sprocket nose. This one's got a little hole for lubrication. This one does not. It's a sealed bearing. Of course, there's a Sujihara. A little bit short though. That's a 16, I believe. And what do I have for chain on that? See, I used the same aftermarket chain on this little Suji as this stuff is, and it actually cut pretty good, and it actually lasted pretty good. So I was pleasantly surprised with that combination. So we'll see if that positive trend with this chain continues, right? And like I said, this is a cheap operation right here, and they're readily available. So if they work for lemon, doing dirty work, it might be a good option. So we will see. One thing I can tell you I like already is the size of the oil hole. I can't tell you how many times I've had bars with a small, this one's pretty good too, but that's even better. Good size. We're running out of daylight. I want to run this configuration for just a little bit. I did a little summary of what I had purchased and on the small mount bars for these saws right here. There's a lot of power right there for the size bar. I wish I could find a good 24-inch option, but the only one I found so far is the Husqvarna Rancher bar. That's pretty heavy. So, and this is cheap. Like I said, I did the overview, but just in case, in the 5 minutes of video between when I did that and now, you forgot that's what this is. And my premise on this is, yeah, I've got the VersaCut, the Sujis, and all that crap. But if you remember, Bob and I were doing tops, of which I'm going to do another one. And I had come to the conclusion that my 18-inch bars, a couple more inches would have been nice. So this is ostensibly a 20-inch bar. At least that's what it says it is. Man, it looks short. That's the problem, man. Once you've run 28s for a couple years, anything that's not 24 looks like it's tiny. But I think what I want to do is just run it because it's got about that much more, and just see whether or not that's either a addition or a subtraction. The other thing I want to see is one of the things I would expect with a cheese ball bar and chain like that is that the stretch like almost instantaneously. Now, I had said and had mentioned on the Suji I had the same chain, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. So maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised again. But anyway, let me get it fired up first, and then let's walk out and see if we can find a top to work before it gets dark. I got a little thing to do up there first too, so I can get out of here. Nothing wrong with the way that chain cuts. Doesn't cut as fast as my aggressive 3/8 chains, but it doesn't leave me lacking, wanting something more. It's good enough. All right, let's go hunt for something else to do. And that operation right there, I would have been happy with a 24. 20's fine. See if there's another dead tree that fell. I tried to poke it into the wood a little bit. With that tip the way it is, that ain't happening. We did this with Bob. Out here somewhere is the other stand. It got crushed. All right, let me start with this one. So what's the conclusion on this cheese ball bar chain concept right here? Well, it did stretch some, but not terrible. I didn't have to adjust it before adding fuel to the saw, so from that perspective it's doing fine. It cuts good enough, right? It's not like my C83 on a big bore saw. This thing's got way more power than it needs to run that bar. And I've been spoiled with more expensive of bar and chains and stuff. For what it is, I can feel it's a little heavier than my Versacuts, just where the saw is, but not enough to really matter. It's just something you notice. So I don't think I'd want to go to a 24 like this, but maybe a 24 with a laminate bar, you know, like a light bar. But it's actually not a bad combination. And me saying that about weight is really nitpicking. For the dollars for doing work like this, we're going to evaluate this stuff, you know, for this entire job, and we'll see whether or not it actually works over time, not just in one little bit of an afternoon. This is a point that I've tried to make now for quite some time. I'm not sure I've done a good job, but you can't evaluate something in an afternoon. You sure can't do it just based on cookies. You got to run it and see how it fits into your program. Do you notice yourself having to, say, sharpen it more, or tighten the chain more, stuff like that? Does it need sharpening more frequently than, say, a better chain? It's those kind of things that add up over time that you'll notice. If you just do a cookie cut, the only thing you know is the time. And I'm going to say it's not going to cut as fast as a speed cut, but I'm also going to say in this stuff right here, it doesn't freaking matter. And it doesn't matter whether it cuts as fast as a steel chain, which costs twice as much. But if it does the job, I get through all these tops. And this time next year, I'm still using this combination. See, that's a success. And I'll actually have enough real data to say, you know something, this is a good combination or not. Right now, my initial impression is, yeah, it's okay. You know, I can feel it being a little more weight than I'd expect on a little tiny bar like that. And the chain cuts good enough, but it doesn't like, I don't say like, wow, this is a great running chain. It's good enough. You know, that's kind of where it is in terms of scale. I wouldn't not run the chain. Where I've had some of the aftermarket chains in the past, I wouldn't even run them. This one here cuts good enough where I would continue running it if that was what it was on my saw until I wore it out. I wouldn't just throw it away. And you know something? Proof of that is the fact that the bar I had on this saw in the last video was a Sujihara with this aftermarket chain on it. And I'd run that quite a bit. It still had an edge. It was still able to do what we were doing here, and I hadn't touched it. I just pulled it out of the truck and started running it after I had done another job. So we're beginning to build experience and data. And over time, I'll actually have enough to where I can say, yeah, this is a good combo. And that's the point. I can't tell you that just yet. I don't know. What I can tell you is it's not so bad that I want to put it right down and change it out right now. I'm curious. I want to run it and see how long it lasts and how long it cuts as good as it's doing right now, which isn't bad.